Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today I wanted to do a little bit of a different video and focus on Pioneer, specifically Pioneer win rates and popularity of decks, using exclusively the data we have gathered from the regional championships. The beauty of the regional championships is that it's one of the largest compositions of data on matchups that we've had in a really long time. I do my metagame analysis all the time and we look at like winningest, like Pioneer decks, mostly on Magic Online. But generally what people are playing in the regional championships are what that they truly believe they can win the tournament with. Where Magic Online, people are just gaming most of the time. At least I am. So I want to give credit where credit's due. First off, I'm using Frank Karsten's data because he is a wizard. Thank you so much if you're watching, Frank. But first I wanted to look at the overall metagame and then overall win rates and matchups and see if there's anything that we can really like derive from this. Let's do it. So first off, the overall Pioneer metagame in the first 5 regional championships. No surprise, Rakdos midrange is 21.1% of the field, clearing Mono Green Devotion by a full 10%, which is absolutely wild. Then the gaps get a little bit smaller. I mean, we knew these two decks were going to be the most popular, right? If you were going into this regional championship without a reasonable game plan against Rakdos midrange and Mono Green Devotion, then you're probably wrong. The order of the rest of them gets a little dubious, right? Is it Creativity 8.2, Azorius Control at 6.7, Abzan Greasepang at 6, which actually that's a little higher than I thought it was going to be. Mono White Humans, which is what I played in the regional championship at 5.9, Boros Convoke at 4.2, Lotusfield Combo at 3.7, etc., etc. Just looking at these, creativity seems a little high, but also there's like 3 different flavors of creativity. So those are all pushed into one here. I also think Boros Convoke is a little bit high. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think the deck's real, but I wasn't expecting a huge amount of it because of its like surge in popularity. And I also think Lotusfield Combo feels a little low to me. I feel like I play against it online much more than it was represented at the regional championships. But that taken, let's look at the overall data. So the overall data, the win rates, Lotusfield cleared the field by nearly a full 3%. Blue-White Lotusfield really came out of nowhere as the most winningest deck in regional championships. Now, one person having a hot run and that being one of the only people playing Lotusfield, like Control, Blue-White Lotusfield or whatever, makes sense that it has the highest win rate. Which is a big reason why people aren't hailing this deck as a breakout deck like they're hailing Azorius Spirits and Red Black Sack as breakout decks. But it's nothing to scoff at. You know, the Strict Proctor, Lotusfield, Rampy stuff is very, very good. Some of the better players that I know that got Pro Tour invites were playing Lotusfield. So it's possible the win rates are because better players were playing that deck than normal. And decks like Rakdos Midrange and Mono Green Devotion not only drew really good players, but drew quite middling players because they are the known best decks. So it's really important to take this data with a little bit of a grain of salt and not have it reflect the deck directly. But we already knew Lotusfield was very good, again, exacerbated likely because a lot of very good players are playing it. The 2 breakout decks from these regional championships are Rakdos Sacrifice and Azorius Spirits. Hey buddy, can you hold on just a sec, okay? I need to finish and then we can hang out. Rakdos Sacrifice actually having quite a significantly better win percentage than its counterpart Rakdos Midrange, specifically having a 91% matchup against Mono White Humans and a 68% matchup against Rakdos Midrange, and a middling matchup against Mono Green Devotion. Like I said, you need to go into this tournament being able to beat Rakdos and be able to beat Mono Green Devotion, and it looks like it's quite favored against Rakdos and is middling against Mono Green Devotion, which are both totally fine. Whereas Azorius Spirits, middling against Rakdos, favored against Mono Green Devotion, and heavily favored against Greasefang. So these 2 decks that people might think were mid to low tier 2 might actually just be tier 1 decks and might actually just be the correct decks to play. Again, it's important to take all of this with a grain of salt. If you're playing Rakdos Sacrifice and Azorius Spirit at something like the regional championships, it's probably a deck that you're very, very good at and not a deck that you're picking up in order to like have a good shot at the tournament or something. Other decks that had reasonably high win rates that weren't expected, Selesnya Angels, Mono Blue Spirits, which is a similar build to Azorius Spirits. Mono Green Devotion, not surprisingly, had a 53% win percentage. Mono White Humans, again, that's what I played, at 52.5. Azorius Control had over 50%. Gruul Vehicles had over 50%. Lotusfield Combo sitting at 50% exactly. Again, not to be confused with Azorius Lotusfield. I feel like I should have clarified that at the beginning of talking about it. Enigmatic Fires, Rogues, all sitting at above 50%. Some surprising decks that were sitting at below 50%. Greasefang, Rakdos Midrange. The new Hotness Boros Convoke deck, the Creativity deck, all I'm very surprised sat below 50%. But as far as Rakdos Midrange and Greasefang goes, you need to have a plan against those decks. If people had a plan against those decks, they're going to win against those decks. And so that just kind of makes sense. But let's look at matchups. Azorius Lotusfield deck doesn't seem to have a bad matchup, but also there aren't a ton of data for it. Rakdos Sacrifice having good matchups against Rakdos Midrange and an amazing matchup against Mono White Humans, which again was a nightmare matchup when I played in the tournament. And Middling maybe a little unfavored against Greasefang. Against everything else, good matchup against Boros Convoke. Azorius Spirits, again, great matchup against Greasefang, good matchup against Devotion. Middling against everything else, maybe a little unfavored against Mono White Humans and Boros Convoke. As far as our other decks to watch, Mono Green Devotion, sitting at a quite favored against Rakdos Midrange and favored against pretty much everything else as far as the decks we care about and decks to watch. Pretty unfavored against Mono White Humans, however. Rakdos Midrange, obviously unfavored against Mono Green Devotion, favored against Is It Creativity, middling against Control, favored against Humans, and heavily favored against Boros Convoke. And you can look at the chart for yourself, but charts like these are really important in understanding overall matchups and really give insight into the format. I think it also shows the reason people don't like the format. Notice all of the green and the red or orange matchups. Often you go into matchups and like there is a 65% favorite, like in a lot of matchups, and people don't really like that. People like having a shot when they go against it and don't feel like rock, paper, scissors. So maybe it's something to look at. I don't know if it's something that is fixable, but it's something to look at. If you like this video and want to see more videos like this, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.